Goedemiddag kijkers, ik ben Joke Ravestein. Vandaag wilde ik graag in het programma Vrouwenstemmen een bijzondere vrouw bij u introduceren, namelijk dokter Atwater. Zij was afgelopen zondag te gast op de ontmoetingsdag van de stichting Merkawa. De stichting Merkawa is een stichting voor mensen met een bijna-doodervaring. In 1988 opgericht door Pim van Lommel, cardioloog. Pim van Lommel had al veel eerder in zijn carrière ontdekt dat soms mensen na een operatie of nadat ze even klinisch dood geweest waren, zoals je dat noemt, vaak bijzondere verhalen hadden, wonderbaarlijke verhalen. En in 1988 besloot hij daar een onderzoek naar te gaan doen, een wetenschappelijk onderzoek wat vorig jaar is afgerond. De stichting Merkawa heeft inmiddels heel veel andere functies gekregen. Er zijn regiogroepen, er zijn contactgroepen, er is een maandblad Terugkeer waarvoor ik schrijf. Ik ben redactielid van het maandblad, ik ben zelf lid van Merkawa. En ik heb de stichting geeft voorlichting, geeft lezingen, er zijn video's verkrijgbaar. Dat alles om de bijna-doodervaring bekendheid te geven, zodat mensen die dit hebben meegemaakt zich niet zo ongemakkelijk hoeven te voelen, omdat ze denken dat ze iets geks hebben meegemaakt, omdat veel mensen dat toch niet aan hun familie kunnen vertellen. Een bijna-doodervaring gaat vaak gepaard met een out-of-body experience, een uittreding. Mensen zien van bovenaf hun eigen lichaam op de operatietafel liggen of ergens anders. Men gaat door een donkere ruimte, een tunnel. Ja, lang niet iedereen, maar veel mensen noemen dat. Sommige mensen zien overleden familieleden. Anderen zien engelen, mensen die hun de weg wijzen of horen een stem. Bijna iedereen, ziet een licht en voelt een warmte die ze nooit meer kunnen vergeten. En degene die als eerste hierover geschreven heeft en het beste hierover geschreven heeft, is dokter Atwater. Veel mensen in Merkawa, ook in Amerika trouwens, hebben heel veel aan haar boeken gehad. Het is niet alleen, dit eerste boek is een soort bijbel geweest voor die mensen. Maar ze heeft andere boeken ook geschreven, onder andere Future Memory, dat heb ik hier liggen. Het leest als een thriller, het is bijna science fiction. Hoewel deze fiction volgens mij de science van de future is. En ze heeft geschreven Children of the New Millennium. Onlangs vertaald in het Nederlands, Kinderen van het Nieuwe Millennium. En ze heeft ook in april van dit jaar uitgekomen een complete gids voor mensen over bijna-doodervaringen, voor mensen die er niets van af weten.
I'm going to start off with a story, very short, about a child's near-death experience. Dateline February 1996, Richmond, Virginia. A mother with two small daughters aboard lost control of her car and flipped it over in a ditch. The oldest daughter nearly lost a leg. 3-year-old Victoria was killed. Refusing the grim verdict, a police officer began CPR on the lifeless body. 5 minutes later, the little girl breathed again. Her first words were, "I saw Jesus, but he told me it wasn't my time. I need to go back and be with my daddy." The child's grandfather, though, a man who drank heavily and did a lot of bad things, was so overcome by Victoria's story that he quit drinking and started to read the Bible. You know, we're all so captured by these stories that children say. Out of the mouth of babes, you know, They can't possibly lie. They're telling us these wonderful stories. And all of the research so far on the near-death experience with children have been about their wonderful stories. But we're missing something. We're missing seeing the experience through the child's eyes. And if you get into those eyes and see the experience from the child's point of view, it differs. And how the child responds to the experience also differs. And it differs very much from how adults respond. My research is the first one so far to look at the near-death experience through the eyes of the child. A 9-day-old infant. 9 days old. She's operated on for a staph infection. It was very serious. She died on the operating table. They had to revive her. This is a drawing she made when she was a little older. She's in her 30s when she did this drawing for me. Now, at the top, this is what she considered to be hell. Now, take a look at that. It looks like a little baby on a little kind of cradle-like operating table, and these beings in the long white robes, those could have been doctors or nurses. Look at the big light above that hurt her eyes. Looks like a typical light in a typical operating room, right? This looks like something that we would say is a typical operating scene in a hospital. Looks like a typical operating room in a typical hospital. However, we're not looking at it through the eyes of a child. To the child, this was hell. Now, there's another component to this. There was a voice speaking to her, a very deep male voice. And the voice said, "Do what I tell you to, or you will die." It was a very threatening voice. And the voice went on to say, "Throughout your life, you will be working for me." And the voice went on and on and on about what was expected of this little girl. The next one is a heavenly experience. See how different they are? This is an 11-year-old. She drowned in a river. She left her body. And suddenly she's in, seemed like a room, although it didn't have walls, but it seemed to her like a room. And that it had a big stage and a great big screen, sort of like this, a big screen, like a movie screen. And she was sitting, that's her to the left. She's sitting down on what seemed like a floor. And she's watching her life go by from birth to the age of 11. She had only sisters. She was the youngest in the family. I think she had about 3 or 4 sisters. And so she witnessed all the things that she did that were bad and bothered her sisters. And she felt very bad about that she had bothered her sisters so much. So she wanted forgiveness. And there was this angel that came. See the angel over there? And the angel had wings. Most of the children see angels with wings, beings with wings. And the angel came and blessed her. And then she wanted to go back to be with her sisters so that she could make up, so that she wouldn't be so bad anymore. And then she revived and came back. Remember, children are looking at things very, very differently than we adults do. Very seldom will a small child call an angel an angel. They don't know that word yet. So they usually call these bright beings the people. They call them the people, or the bright people, or the bright ones. They don't know the word angel. Those that do use the term angel, they talk about the white angels, the black angels, and the colored angels. Now, when they're talking about a white angel, they're talking about an angel the color of a white color crayon. When they're talking about a black angel, they're talking about an angel that is as black as a black color crayon. But when they're talking about colored angels, they're talking about angels that have skin tones the same tone as real people do. So these are the color, to a child, these are colored angels. They have the various skin tones of real people. But a white angel is really white, a black angel is really black. It's not a member of the black race, it's really a black angel. The children talk a lot about having to visit the animal heaven before they can go to the heaven where real people are. That's interesting. You get a lot of religious figures also with children, Jesus-type figures like the Christ. If the child is from Thailand, they're often greeted by Lord Yama, the god of the underworld. In other words, an authority figure of great light and great power. So they'll tend to call that figure the name that is particular to their culture or their belief system or their parents' belief system. But if you have these children draw what they're seeing, you can't tell the difference between a child in Thailand and a child in the state of Wyoming in the USA. The state of Wyoming will say, "Oh, I was met by Jesus." And the child in Thailand will say, "Oh, I was met by Lord Yama." But when they draw it, it's the same figure. They just call it by different terms. And children are often met by animals, not just people. Every once in a while, children are met by the living, not the dead. Maybe they're met by their school teacher, their favorite school teacher, or the kid down the block, or maybe their cousin. And what I've noticed with these children that are met by the living, that being, that image will stay there only as long as to relax the child. Once the child relaxes into the experience, the living being disappears and is replaced by imagery more typical of near-death experiences.
Welcome, Dr. Atwater. We are very happy to have you here. In your first book, you talk about 3 near-death experiences that you had in 1977. You even said, "I died 3 times in 1977. Could you tell us some more about that, about these experiences?
Those who got to see Jesus and talk to Jesus. It was a very dramatic, at least for me, experience. But the third one, which happened 3 months later, my first 2 were January the 2nd and January the 4th in 1977. The third one happened 3 months later, which was March 29. And that one was far longer and far more complex than even the second one was. And it haunted me because it was so different. And I had no way to understand it or to appreciate it or know what it meant. And it began to follow me, and it began to manifest in my life. For instance, I would be in my kitchen talking to my daughter, and all of a sudden, my third near-death experience would come back, and I would see all that imagery again. Or I would be driving down a highway, and suddenly what's in front of me would be my third near-death experience. It would not be the land that was in front of me. So it haunted me in that way. And I wasn't really able to put that haunting to rest until I wrote my book, Future Memory. And that's this particular book right here, Future Memory. And that was the book that helped me to face my third near-death experience and really understand, or at least have that feeling that I knew what it meant. And it has a lot to do with creation, about God, about souls, about fate, about destiny. So writing that book was very helpful then. It helped me to put my own experience in a place where I could understand it better. But there was another component to my third near-death experience that I didn't talk about until about 2 years ago. And that is, in my third near-death experience, after the revelations were given to me, there was a voice that spoke. And it was like a voice, it wasn't like an angel voice or a guide or a guardian or a deceased individual or a spirit being or a light being. It wasn't that kind of voice. It was a voice so powerful that it's like it filled every molecule in the universe and every cell in everybody's body. I considered it to be of God. And that voice said, and I quote, "Test revelation. You are to do the research. 1 book for each death." Then it showed me what was to be in each book. It did not name book number 1, but it did name book number 2. Future Memory is book number 2. And it named book number 3. That book is not done yet. I'm still working on it. It did not tell me how to do it, how to do the research, or how long it would take me. But it's most researchers of the near-death experience have their own agenda. They are researching the experience for various reasons. I have a different agenda. My agenda is to be absolutely clear and truthful, to be able to establish my findings, to cross-check my findings, and to give perspective to the entire experience. That's what I was told to do, and that's exactly what I do. I'm very rigid and careful and particular about my protocol or the way I do my research. I'm a police officer's daughter, a cop's kid, and I was raised in a police station. And believe it or not, from the age of 9 on, I was just a little kid. From the age of 9, my dad started teaching me how to do police investigative techniques. Why, I don't know. He just did. And he was very fussy about it, that I learned this. Well, after I died, I used what he taught me to do my work. So my style of doing this is police investigative techniques. And my dad would always say, if you can't prove what you found in a court of law, it isn't any good. Throw it away. Well, I can say to my dad, I'm not sure that what I've done will stand up in a court of law, but I do know I've given it my best. So we now have the Dutch version of Children of the New Millennium. This is the US version, but here's the Dutch version. Just came out a couple of days ago. And in the dedication to the book, I dedicate this book to my father and what he taught me in how to do research.
Many people with a near-death experience have become so sensitive that they feel the pain of others, even sometimes before their own pain. How can they deal with that? Because you have to stand up for yourself also. There's many people that don't know how to say no anymore. They're have become a bit secondary. Afterwards they feel what they should have done. Could you give some advice or how did you do that?
Had a valid experience, you're okay. Once you realize you're okay, then I invite people to either have some kind of counseling or therapy, or begin some kind of program where they begin to learn more about themselves, especially their new self, and what they can do in society, in their families, and in their lives to feel better about themselves and use their energy in a more positive, constructive way. What helped me a lot was I learned to keep myself grounded. In other words, I don't use dishwashers. I always wash my dishes myself with my own hands. That keeps me grounded. I cook supper. I don't eat out as much as possible. I cook supper for my husband. No, I'm not vegetarian. I do eat a little bit of like chicken and fish, but that's about it. I do little things like house cleaning. These things that help me to stay on the ground, taking out the trash, balancing my checkbook. Those things that help me to stay balanced and grounded. Then those things that help me to appreciate myself better and that help me to relate to other people better. I get that kind of help through spiritual reading, through prayer, and through meditation. What I have learned in my life, again, is to bless things and respect people to bless them, but also to respect myself and to bless myself. And I've learned that if I'm in a difficult situation, I've learned to always take a big swallow. Give myself a little bit of time to just relax, get into my heart, and then I can respond. That little bit of extra time helps me to get back to who I know I am. And I know I'm a child of God. I know that I'm part of that spiritual divinity of which we are all a part of. And that gives me a chance to get back to that pure energy so that I can respond in a more clear and positive manner and not get my emotions in the way. That's what I do for me. Children talk a lot about the different lights that they go into. So do adults. But you notice it more with children. There seems to be 3 distinctively different types of light. There is what is called the primary light, the black light, or the white light, the dark light or the bright light, but the primary light. And they are different. The primary light is colorless, doesn't have a color. It's like a radiation. It seems somehow very, very powerful, very raw, very piercing, very awesome. The kids talk about it like God's light. Then there's the dark light or the black light. It is often seen with purple in it, often has purple in it. And this light shimmers. It's very peaceful. It's very loving. It's very safe. It's very healing. And it teaches the children things. It's very warm. It's very wonderful. They love the black light. Then there's the bright light, or the white light, which most of you are familiar with. The range of colors from yellow to gold to white. A brilliant color, a brilliant glow that's almost blinding, radiates unconditional love, very warm and inviting. The children call the primary light God's light, the black light the mother light, and the bright light the father light. And that the father and mother light come from God's light, the primary colorless light, that radiation, that powerful radiation That's God's light. And the bright white light and the dark black light come from God's light. They're just the opposite radiation of that primary light. And children see prayer. They don't just hear it, they see it. And they talk a lot about prayer, and they call it prayer beams. Prayer beams. And what they see is these beams that go from the one saying the prayer to the one who receives the prayer. And they see these beams of light coming out. They're huge beams. Most of them see these beams as rainbow colored. Like these huge rainbows that come out from the person saying the prayer. Come out in the air, come out through your head and your heart, and come out in the air. Or they're seen as very bright white or golden beams. But these huge beams that come out. And so I asked a number of these children, what's it like to be hit by one of these beams? If the beam is coming to them, if a person is praying for them, the child will see the beam coming at them. I said, what's it like to be hit by one of these beams? They said, oh, it's warm and tingly all over. They love prayer beams. Makes them feel warm and good. Remember, I have a number of cases of pre-birth experience, a number of cases of dealing with the unborn. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, the unborn. First of all, I'm going to give you a case where there's no picture, then I'll give you a case where there is a drawing that I can show you. This is a 4-year-old little boy who drowned in his parents' backyard swimming pool. He's an only child. Mom is in her late 20s. Dad is in his early 30s. They could not revive the child. The emergency crews came in and were finally able to resuscitate the boy after 15 minutes. Now let me take just a brief moment here and talk about how long the average near-death experiencer is dead. Now, when I'm talking about dead, I'm talking about people who have no vital signs. No breath, no pulse, no sign of brain activity. The average adult or child, the average time without vital signs is between 5 to 20 minutes. That's average. It is not unusual for a near-death experiencer to be without vital signs for over an hour. It is also not unusual for one of these experiencers to revive in the morgue, much to the shock of morgue personnel.
One very last question. In Future Memory, you talk about one thought, many thinkers. What did you mean by that?
I can sum it up. I can give you a summary of what I learned. I learned that love is the only standard, and choice is the only process, and forgiveness is the only protection anybody can ever have, because you become whatever it is you cannot forgive. I learned that God is, and God is love, and God as love is the only standard. I can sum up all of any stories anybody has ever told me, or my story, in 4 words. One mind, many thinkers.